Okay, so this is something I am really fascinated by. If we, through a biological and psychological lens, if we know that our thoughts and beliefs and outlook essentially determine the quality of our life experience and the decisions we're most likely to make, and so our sort of life path. If the way that we think is that fundamental to our lives, then first of all, why are we not, taught how to optimize and manage our thoughts at school? That would be so helpful. But also, why aren't we all rushing to update and improve our way of thinking now, and making sure that the way that we habitually think and that our beliefs about ourself and the world are working for us and rather than against us? It's a bit mad, and there are probably a few reasons for this. One might be that it's only relatively recently that we discovered neuroplasticity. So before that point, neuroscientists thought that our brains remained sort of static and couldn't really change much structurally beyond childhood, which we now know is not the case. We know that our brains are what they call plastic, which means, malleable and kind of moldable and changeable throughout our lives. So that might be part of it. And another reason might be that the early fields of medicine and psychology were very separate and kind of quite divided. So it was believed that we have a mind, which is this invisible thing, and then we have a body, which is somehow separate to that. And as any modern neuroscientist or neurophysiologist will tell you, that is definitely not the case. So there might be a bit of a hangover kind of left from that myth of the separation between our mind and our body. But I think possibly it just hasn't fully landed in the collective consciousness yet that, by the way you think is fundamental to how happy and healthy and, good you feel and how well your life is going. So if you've ever wondered how important your thoughts and beliefs are to your quality of life, to put it in a nutshell, very, very, very important. But what's so encouraging about this field of psychotherapy, so cognitive therapy, is that the way that you habitually think and even the things that you believe can change, and therefore so can your life experience. And so here's a sort of an outline about why that is. So when you consistently place your attention on something, particularly with heightened focus and a lot of repetition, this builds a structure in your brain called a neural network. And once this network is built, then your attention will run more effortlessly along these networks in the future, which is an efficiency mechanism in the brain, essentially. So it's easier to run thoughts along existing lines of neurons than creating new ones. So this means that if you think in a certain way for long enough, this will become automatic and more likely your way of thinking in the future. So what does that mean for our lives? It means that the way that you use your thoughts and your focus and your attention are creative. So repetitive thoughts in particular build patterns in your brain which determine your automatic, more likely ways of thinking in the future. And those automatic ways of thinking hugely affect your emotional state and your behaviours. So it's quite important that the way that you think is serving you and is optimised for a happy, healthy life. So, it's quite a big deal. So the cognitive science highlights the fact that your current life experience is so highly influenced by your thinking habits that for real noticeable change in your outside world to occur, it is crucial to address your habitual thoughts, and that by making small adjustments to the way that you think, your external world and life situation, your everyday reality, can be pretty drastically improved. So this process is more than just reframing things and having a positive mental attitude, PMA all the time, just to feel better, although that is a huge part of it, because changing the way that you think can drastically change the way that you feel about things. But it's also essentially a process of tweaking what's going on in your mind in order to make real, visceral, very tangible differences in your everyday life. So, okay, our thoughts are really important. Now, does this mean that we start obsessing over our thoughts and, trying to control them moment by moment? And do we berate ourselves, every time we have an anxious or stressful or, limiting, disempowering thought? No, definitely not unless you want to feel really stressed and anxious. But what you can start to do is gradually harness your thoughts sometimes in order to make changes to your automatic thinking patterns. So rather than stressing about individual thoughts, which, these just very random pop-up thoughts, which are just here, there and everywhere, our mind, it can throw out some pretty crazy stuff. It's much more about the thoughts that you have over and over. So looking at the trends and the themes that are on automatic repeat in your mind, because these thoughts do something and they build something physiologically in your brain. So when you understand this, you start to see that your focus and your attention is capital. It's like a currency. And where you direct it over and over again, you're creating a pattern physiologically in the brain. And these patterns are what determine your unconscious, more automatic ways of thinking and ways of feeling and ways of being and behaving, just moment to moment. So these patterns of thought can serve you really well or be detrimental and unhelpful. And so that's the focus of these sessions. We use a technique called cognitive restructuring with hypnosis. So cognitive restructuring is an evidence-based CBT technique, and it's a method which helps you to identify what's called cognitive distortions, so problematic or limiting ways of thinking. It helps you to question and dispute those, and which sort of kind of destabilizes them. And then we identify preferable, helpful replacements for those kinds of thoughts. And then in cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy, we combine that process with evidence-based hypnotic techniques. And those help you to kind of strengthen and embed those new preferable ways of thinking, so that those new patterns become your kind of automatic default setting. And the applications of this are really universal. So you can use this technique to help you manage or improve any area of your life. So if you're facing a challenge that, you know, simply can't be changed, something completely out of your control, then adapting your thoughts around that thing is the one place that you can impact the way that you feel going through that experience and how you process it, so how it kind of affects you going forwards. Or if you have things in life, in, you know, relationships or your career, professionally, personally, socially, that you'd like to tweak or improve, then adapting your thinking habits around that thing is going to have a huge impact on that situation or that part of your life. What's really amazing about this process is that a lot of people come to this kind of work with a specific problem or challenge that they're trying to overcome. But once they've addressed that, then the realization that you can apply this process to any part of your life for some fairly drastic improvements is, you know, actually quite exciting. So whatever you're facing in life, if it's new challenges or just, you know, some sort of old challenge that just won't quit, or a new opportunity or change, or you just want one thing that's going to help you accelerate and improve in any specific area of your life, then this could be really helpful for you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. You can email me or hop over to the bookings page to book in your free phone consultation or your first session. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.